Things that I would do differently if I were starting over today. I have sort of talked about this in the past. I made one other video at the 1-year anniversary mark of my business where I discussed things that I think I did right or that like worked out for me from the beginning and things that I would have done differently. And I thought it would be kind of fun to revisit that. I'm now maybe a year and a half into launching my business and have been through my second holiday season. A lot of change has happened since the last time I made that video. And I definitely have some additional things that I would definitely like do differently, or I've had the chance to reflect on and think, that worked out for me from the beginning. Like, I'm glad that I did things that way. So I just always want to share those when I think of them, because I always like hearing those sorts of things from other business owners. I think it's helpful to learn from other people's mistakes. Like, I don't even want to like be that dramatic. Like, obviously I'm happy with where things are right now, so I don't want to be too hard on myself that I like messed anything up. Just sharing some perspective now that I've had a little bit of distance from where I was when I started this business. And hopefully that can help anybody else who's in sort of a similar boat. So I'm just going to jump right in with the first one, which is not introducing so many new products as quickly as I did. I really struggle with this. I continue to struggle with this because I'm always thinking of new products that I'm excited about researching or posting about on social media to get people's feedback, see what they're thinking. And that's part of the fun for me with this business, is learning new things, challenging myself to make new things, designing new packaging. And part of that excitement is what motivates me to stay focused at work. So obviously I have to like keep a little bit of that in the mix in order to like stay interested and not just be doing the same thing over and over again. But I think I went about it the wrong way looking back at it. Obviously, again, I'm not mad at myself for the way I did it. I'm happy with how things are. But if I were giving advice to myself a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I would be much more strategic about the kind of new products I was introducing. So, for example, in my situation, I started with soap. I had a collection of 5 year-round soaps, and I think I launched with 3 or 4 seasonal soaps. So altogether, it was just soap. They were all the same shape. It was this sort of like thick shower bar kind of size. And after that, the next thing I launched was lip balm, and then candles, and then I think shower steamers. And the trouble with all of those new products is that they were entirely new recipes that I had to figure out, which meant a lot of testing, a lot of wasted ingredients for things that didn't work out. I had to figure out new packaging for everything, and all of those sorts of elements to launching a new product took so much time and energy. And then sometimes I would launch them and they weren't even as well received. Like some of them were very well received. Some of them, it was like, oh, all this work and these are barely selling. So what I think I would have done instead is look at the product I already had. So I had this shower bar that I was super happy with. I loved the quality of that soap. I loved the fragrances I was working with. I felt really confident in my soap recipe, and I was also getting really good feedback on the soap. So instead of switching to lip balm, I think I would have been better served coming up with variations of my soap recipe. And what I mean by that is I'm just now launching a small round soap that's sort of an ideal size for like a guest bathroom or even just your main bathroom at the sink instead of like in the shower. Because my shower bars are big. So they're great for like a bathtub or a shower. They're pretty substantial for sitting next to a sink, picking up in your hands and washing your hands. And now that I have this small round soap, it's so clear that that would have been a good complement to the bar soap that I already had. I think I was like all excited about doing something totally new that I sort of lost sight of that. I think that that would have been a better second product to go with, because all I needed in that instance were the molds to make a new shape and packaging design for this new product, which is still work, but the really tough part of all of this is like researching recipes, buying ingredients, figuring out price points, like all of that kind of stuff that would be much easier if I was working with a recipe I had already nailed down, knew that it worked. I also think I could have launched gift sets of soap. I still don't have gift sets of soap. Like that's still something that's on my to-do list to figure out. Is like taking my big bars, cutting them down and making like a little gift set of 3 or 4 cents. It's like an easy thing that would take all of the stuff I already have and only require me to come up with new packaging and new pricing. And like packaging for a gift set, is even not necessarily that complicated. So that's, I think, where I would have done things differently. I got all excited because people were asking about candles. And again, I'm so glad that I launched candles because they've done really well for me. But I was naive about how much time it takes to figure out an entirely new product when you're like starting from nothing, as opposed to introducing a new product that started from here because I already had the recipe and the ingredients and all that stuff on hand. Another thing I probably would have done differently, and this is easy to say now where I'm at, I think maybe it's possible it would have been disheartening in the beginning. So like take this with a grain of salt, but I think I would have focused more locally so as to avoid the mess of shipping. I cannot stress enough how much shipping is like an energy suck for me. I am so happy to send products out to people outside of this area. I had a lot of people in my network supporting me who were not local, and so it seemed silly to not focus on this online e-commerce presence right away because they were the ones who were going to buy from me. But if that weren't the case, I think I would have been much better served by starting off with local markets where I could come set up my products, not worry about shipping costs or anything, and local potential wholesale customers where, again, I can like deliver the product to them and just box everything up in one box. Don't worry about shipping costs. Because shipping is just, especially over the past few years, shipping costs have really skyrocketed, and there's definitely been plenty of packages where I have lost money on shipping, and then it's this additional frustration. But to charge accurately on shipping, what am I going to do? Like charge $9 on a $9 soap bar just to ship it? I had a hard time trying to figure out what the solution was, and I spent a lot of energy and stress on it when I think it might have been easier to just say, you know what, I'm not going to launch an online store yet. I'm going to try and sell these in person and see what kind of response I get, and then maybe go from there. Another thing I would have done differently on the topic of products and product creation is I think that I would have bought more products as part of my research. I tried to figure out as much as I could online, watching YouTube videos, just like hearing people's feedback about how different ingredients work and the characteristics of like putting shea butter in a lip balm versus cocoa butter. I really just wanted to like figure out the information and then decide on my own. But I think it might have just been easier to like go buy products with the different ingredients in them and see for myself what I liked about the different ones and like which ones felt like the type of ingredients I wanted to include in my products. I never did any of that, which like, I don't know, feels silly now saying it. And obviously there's some things that it's really tough to, depending on what you're creating, like you can't spend a ton of money up front just buying all of these sample products. But even like candles, I think trying to figure out like what kind of candles I wanted to make, like I don't think I spent enough time looking at luxury candles in this space. Like I have like luxury candles that I've been gifted, and so I had a couple, but I definitely would have spent more time experiencing products from the customer, the consumer side, and allowing that to help me make decisions about how I formulated my recipes. And then the last thing I think that I would have done differently, which again, still working on doing more, is focusing on email marketing. I am terrible at email marketing. I am really bad about consistency. I always think like, oh, I should send out an email about this. And then too much time passes and it's no longer relevant. Or maybe it is and I've given up on it. It's a whole big headache that I am really bad at. But every time I send out an email about like a product or whatever, like I always make at least a sale. And it takes takes hardly any effort for me. It takes some effort, but there's no additional cost to sending emails. Now, you don't want to get to a point where you're like sending so many emails that people tune you out. Part of the reason I think I make sales is because when I do, it's usually something special that I'm sending an email about. But even like realizing now that when I am in like a slow month, I should be emailing people about sales. Like I should be running sales and sending out to my email list. These are like verified people that want to hear from me. And yet I don't do it. I clearly have some sort of block around email marketing, and it's definitely on my list of things to tackle and get over and start experimenting with, because it's just, I don't know, it's just like silly that I don't put more effort into it when the return is definitely there. So that's something I would definitely do differently. And obviously when you're first starting out, you probably won't have a super big email list. But what I did is at markets, so like I said, focusing locally, go to these markets, have a notebook out at every market you do, offer some sort of incentive for putting their email down. For me, it was like enter to win a $25 gift card. I usually got, I've probably gotten like, I don't know, at least 70 people through that, which when you have no one on your email list, that's a good amount. And you really only takes like one of those people to be reminded by an email like, oh yeah, I do need like a hostess gift or somebody's birthday's coming up, Mother's Day, whatever, to make it worth sending out the email. So yeah, I am not an expert at all. I'm sure that there are people sharing a lot of great advice about email marketing, but I'll have to find them because I have a lot of work to do. All right, so now let's shift over to things that I feel that I did right, or like things that worked out that I'm like really glad that I did them the way that I did. So speaking of going to markets and putting on a notebook for your email list, markets are something that I feel like I did right early on, like trying to do as many as I possibly could, figuring out which ones worked for my audience. There's a lot of trial and error there. Like going to a bunch of markets, you're gonna quickly find that some of them were not so much worth the time, and some of them absolutely are. But even the ones where you're thinking like, oh, this was definitely a waste of my day, it's still really helpful because usually you can figure out what the common thread is between the ones that don't work as well and the ones that do. Like for me, doing farmers markets this past summer is very clear that like a farmers market is not worth my time. Like I enjoy them, I love attending them, and so I had this sort of like fun romantic idea of being one of the vendors. But a lot of people going to a farmers market are looking specifically for food, and they might pick up soap or other products that they need, but my products sort of feel like a luxury in the sense that like they're not just utilitarian. Part of the appeal of my products are the way they look, and I think that someone going to a farmer's market is maybe not looking for gifts. They're probably just looking for like groceries or like something fun to eat that day. And I don't think farmers markets are right for me. So that's great. Like I still made some money, but I think it was absolutely like a great learning experience as I approach this next year of what I'm going to do. I will not be doing farmers markets, but I will continue to do the other kinds of events that I know work really well for me. And I figured all of that out by just doing as many of them as I can. It's also so great for networking I've met a lot of local other makers in this area. The organizers of the events, it's always nice to know them, and you never know who's going to be shopping at one of the events that you do, who might have a store or know someone who needs XYZ. And it's just been really great for getting my name out there and having people continue to recognize my brand and associate me with the brand, getting to talk to me and know me personally. It just really creates an overall sort of experience of my brand that I think is great for like local shoppers. I just want to acknowledge that I'm very, very lucky that this worked out for me the way that it did. And I don't know. I hope this doesn't seem like I'm saying, oh, just do this. It's no problem. I know it's not in the budget for a lot of people, but for me personally, having an off-site workspace was a huge, huge difference maker in terms of how I approached this business and how I feel about it day to day. So not only did it allow me to have some sort of like mental clarity around this is work, and then when I'm at home, which for me is crucial. I have a hard time sort of shutting my brain off around work. I have 2 little kids and I want to be present with my kids when I'm at home, and having a separate space where all the stuff is, and I don't even have the option of making anything when I'm at home because it's all here. It really, it really created that sort of separation that helped me also just like up level my perception of what this business is. Like it's very much not a hobby anymore. I am in a workspace dedicated to this work and this brand, and it's another good motivator to keep producing, keep growing, because I now have an additional bill to pay. If you're not someone who can afford a separate space early on, which I think is most people, like it is hard to rationalize signing a lease for a space when you're not sure what your cash flow is going to be in regards to the business. I still think it's so, so crucial to have a dedicated workspace where like it's not a sort of like mixed use space. Like I was making stuff in our kitchen, which meant everything was stored somewhere else because there was no extra room in our kitchen. And part of why I got an offsite space is because there was nowhere else for me to work at home. Like we tried to make a few different spaces work, and our house is just, the rooms are very small, and I was quickly outgrowing any ability to like do any of it. So if you're someone who has a garage that they can convert into a workspace, I think that's very worth it when you're trying to focus on this and grow and like build a business that feels like its own thing and not something you're trying to like sneak into other little pockets of time. So whether that's a garage, like I said, or a basement, or maybe you have an attic space, something with good ventilation if you're making soap, but something that allows you to have a space that's just about the business, I think is so crucial. And again, I know I'm very lucky to be able to do this. I don't want to make it seem like I think that this is something everybody can do. Just want to be honest about an expense that I added to my business early on that has absolutely been worth it for me. And then lastly, I also think sharing my experience on social media has been a super rewarding task that is part of my day. I don't always get to it as much as I want to. It is a low priority in terms of what I need to do throughout my day. But when I am able to share, it is so great feeling sort of less alone. I get tips from people when I'm sharing something that I'm struggling with. I get a lot of encouragement from people who are either in the same boat as me or not. And I also think that, again, it like personalizes my brand. So if someone who is a potential customer watches something of mine, either on YouTube or on social media like Instagram or TikTok, I think it's just like a really nice way for people to get to know me that doesn't feel like I get pretty socially drained from doing markets or networking events. I am an introvert, so being around a bunch of people is usually ultimately draining for me. I have fun doing it a lot of the time. Like, I'm not saying I don't like it. I like doing it, but I need a real come down after a market or a networking event. And I don't feel that way when I'm making these videos or when I post something on social media, because it allows me to share parts of myself without the like social aspect of it right off the bat. Like, if people are commenting and stuff, I get to control when I respond. It doesn't need to be immediate. And I like all the tips about like post every day, post 3 to 5 times a day on TikTok, not sustainable. Even like on YouTube, like I wish I could post every week. I have a hard time doing that because things get in the way. And I just want to say that, like, if you can't be consistent, don't write it off. Like, I'm not consistent on any platform, but my lack of consistency is not a reason to not do it at all. I have still seen a lot of benefits from doing things the way that I do them, which is incredibly inconsistent. And so I'm glad that I didn't stop doing it because I just felt guilty around the fact that, or like overwhelmed by the fact that I couldn't do it as often as you recommended to. So that's it for now. I'm sure I'll be back in another 6 months with some perspective on how things have changed since this video, but hopefully this is helpful. I'm very curious to hear what any of you think about things that have gone right or things that you do differently, or if you're just starting off, please comment below and let me know. I'd be happy to offer some words of encouragement. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe and like this if you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next video.